So I'm here on Cook Street. So I've moved from the west of the walled city to the north. So I would be basically standing outside the city wall to the north with the Liffey at my back. So between the wall and the Liffey. This is before the extension to the wall was built in the 1240s. After that, there would have also been that sort of northern extension to the wall behind me to the north. And this gate from St. Auden's Church dates from around that period of extension of the wall. So this is quite an impressive stretch of the wall. It's about 93 meters, and you can see quite well there the different periods of building. The top of the wall is modern there. You can tell really from the top sections there. But some of the bottom sections are quite a bit older. And you can just see here that the maintenance of the walls was an ongoing process and an ongoing concern for the city. But what I'm actually here to see in Cook Street, or to talk about, is the street itself. And particularly this name, Cook Street. It had this name as early as the 1230s. That's when we first have record of the name. But it may have been called this significantly earlier than that. That's just our first document that mentions it. And it probably took that name from the activity that took place on this street, cooking. And the reason that cooking might have taken place here outside the city walls and near to the River Liffey, and the River Liffey would have been nearer in the medieval period, particularly before sort of the 1200, after which the river started being pushed back and the land was reclaimed. The reason the cooking would happen here outside the city walls is to guard against fire. And fire was one of the major concerns or fears of medieval citizens of this city and other cities across Europe. When we look at the sort of physical remnants of the Middle Ages in our streetscape, so things like this wall, like St. Auden's, let's see if we're able to see just the top of it there, they're in stone. Castles, other really high status buildings are all in stone. But if we were actually back in medieval Dublin, the vast majority of buildings would have been wooden. So most people would have lived in wooden houses, shops, all kinds of structures would have been built in wood. And as I've said, the medieval city was quite small. It was quite closely packed. So the danger of fire was ever present. So cooking, as it would have been over an open flame, took place here. Now this is sort of industrial cooking I'm talking about, not sort of domestic cooking in each house. There were also fires in houses within the city for domestic cooking and heating purposes, but there were regulations about those too. So the city council regulated how close your oven or your fire could be to the wall of your house and to your neighbor's wall, because they were trying to cut down on the spread of fire if they were unlucky enough to have one house catch on fire. They didn't want it to spread. And we actually have quite an interesting law about this, about the problem of fires. So hold on one second, I'm just looking in this. A recent copy of one of the medieval Dublin volumes, so the Proceedings of the Medieval Dublin Symposium. And in it is a wonderful, really useful article, a translation of the laws and usages of the city of Dublin. And I would really recommend anyone that's interested in the city in the Middle Ages, and particularly in the way that the mayor and council tried to deal with problems that arose in the city should pick this up. But so this is one of the ways that they tried to punish people who started fires in the city. If the house of a man goes up in flames through fire and the flames spread beyond the house, the fine is 20 shillings, so long as the fire causes no damage to any of the neighbours. If the fire is caused by a servant, let the servant be taken and cast into the fire, if he can be caught. If he cannot be caught, he should be sought by 4 sergeants in the 4 quarters of the town. And if he can be found, he shall be attached, and then the city shall take an inquest there where the harm was done. And if he be guilty of the arson and burning down the neighbourhood, he shall hang. So it's a very draconian punishment to discourage carelessness with fire, I suppose, just because it was such a great danger. We don't know if that was ever enforced. It's interesting in telling about medieval justice. I think that it's the servant of the worthy man is the one who gets this capital punishment rather than the worthy man himself. There was no real pretense at sort of fairness across all, across class and status in the Middle Ages. People who were poor often had sort of more severe corporal punishments and couldn't pay their way out of hanging or being cast into the fire, as was the punishment prescribed in this Dublin City ordinance.